Yes, you read the title correctly. I'm giving the Final Fantasy series one more chance to make a good, lasting impression on me. Now, before you burn me at the stake and you dislike my video, hear me out. If you follow my channel, you would know that Final Fantasy is not amongst my favorite of JRPGs. I respect it for it being a pioneer, and I respect it for the impact that it's had on one of my favorite genres of all time. But if you guys also know my story, you would know that my first Final Fantasy I ever truly played was Final Fantasy 13, and that left a very, very bad taste in my mouth, and you guys told me I made a mistake, and looking back, I definitely agree that I made a bad mistake. Now, one of the reasons that I'm doing this particular video is because of the hype, and the most anticipated game of a lot of JRPGers is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the remake of Final Fantasy VII Part 2, I think, or something like that. In this video, I want to give Final Fantasy another fair shot. So I want you guys to choose from amongst 4 Final Fantasies that have my attention, and I want you all to unanimously vote, discuss, hash it out in the comment section down below, which should be my next Final Fantasy experience that I should play before Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out. Now, this is important because I will also do a review on the Final Fantasy that you guys choose, and it'll ultimately help me make my decision on if I even want to give Final Fantasy VII Rebirth the time of day, because honestly, I'm not that interested currently, but if I can play a Final Fantasy that really gets me invested into the series, perhaps I will be down to do so. So I'm about to give you guys 4 Final Fantasies that have my attention that I'll be willing to play, and then do a review for that game in anticipation for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So without all this talking, without any more, let's jump into the 4 that I have on my mind right now. So we all need a little bit of retro loving, and honestly, I want to know more and see more about the origin of Final Fantasy. So I'm throwing Final Fantasy VI up on here. Also, because you guys told me in a lot of comments that this game was definitely worthy of me checking out. Now, I don't mind how old it is, and I don't mind that it's a retro. I'm more excited to experience what the original Final Fantasies were like before we made it into the 3D era, the pretty boys and all the pretty girls and all the pretty graphics and all the turn-based action combat hybrid battle systems. I want to see more of the true essence of Final Fantasy and where this series actually stems from, and the foundation. To be honest with you, I know nothing about, I always hear about Final Fantasy 7 and up. The way that this fan base acts sometimes, it's like 1 through 6 doesn't even exist. So the furthest I'm willing to go back is Final Fantasy 6 because of you guys' recommendations, and also because I think that this is a nice middle point for a new fan to try to come in and see the origin of the series and appreciate where this series actually came from. So one of my first options and my first choices is Final Fantasy VI. I hope this is not an ill-fated choice just like I did with 13, but I'm going to throw it on here out of respect for the foundation and the origin of Final Fantasy. So this is my first option. Now, moving right on along, I'm going to throw Final Fantasy VII Remake on here, Part 1. Why am I going with the remake Part 1 instead of the original Final Fantasy VII? Well, because I feel like it'll work better for me going from the remake Part 1 to Part 2, as we know that it wasn't a one-to-one remake from the original. So honestly, to be real with y'all, since I'm not really a hardcore fan, I'd rather start from the remake and then go over to Rebirth. Now, this is the thing right here, okay? Final Fantasy games are long and they take a lot of investment and time, and I'm a busy guy, all right? So I need to make sure that the choice that I choose is the right one. This one makes the most sense because it's modern, it's new, and it's a direct prequel to the one that's coming out. However, I want to still experience whichever Final Fantasy will help make me become a fan and get invested into the series. Now, this one looks interesting, and I've seen it around, and I saw the reviews, and I know it's good and it's modern and all of that. But again, I'm just not the biggest fan of Final Fantasy, so this one would have to really make a good impression on me in order for me to truly get invested. It does look good, the graphics look beautiful, the gameplay looks seemingly solid, but I do know that it had that sort of action hybrid JRPG battle system, and I don't know if I'm looking for something a little bit more traditional. I don't know. As you guys know, one of my critiques of the Final Fantasy franchise was the battle systems not really being consistent and changing from game to game to game in such drastic ways. So I'm throwing Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 on here to see if I can give this series a proper adequate chance. Or you guys let me know if all of this is wrong and I should just go back to the original Final Fantasy VII and see what all the hype is about and see how this particular entry in the Final Fantasy franchise got such a big name. So you guys, I'm leaving this one up to you. Y'all let me know. Should I start with Remake 7 first, or should I go with Original 7? Y'all let me know, man. Whatever y'all decide is what I'll ultimately do. Now, next up, I'm going to throw Final Fantasy VIII in the pool of my potential Final Fantasies. I'm primarily doing this because you guys told me that this game in particular represents the Chrono Cross era the most. You guys told me it's the most similar to Chrono Cross, and as you know, Chrono Cross is one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. So when you say something like that, it makes my expectations shoot way up because I'm expecting greatness for this game, since you guys have been comparing it as the closest thing to Chrono Cross from Final Fantasy. I've seen Squall around the character around a bit here and there. Now listen, all because I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, it doesn't mean that I've been living in the cave. I've seen some of these characters, I've dabbled in some of these games, but I've never truly committed to any of these games. So I've never committed to Final Fantasy VIII, and honestly, I'm willing to go back on that and give it a shot, especially because you guys say that it reminds you of the Chrono Cross era. Now that's primarily why I'm putting this one on here, because if it reminds me of one of my favorite games of all time, I'm willing to give it a way better shot and more fair chance. So I'm throwing Final Fantasy VIII on here. I don't know much else about this game, but it does look pretty good. The combat looks somewhat simple and easy to follow, so I'm throwing Final Fantasy VIII on here. You guys let me know if this is a good choice. I'm really interested in this game's story and the aesthetic of the game, so I'm willing to give it a shot. So Final Fantasy VIII is my third choice. And as you guys know, like I just said, I don't live in a cave. Final Fantasy X is regarded as one of the best PlayStation 2 JRPGs to ever exist and ever come out. I see that this particular entry has a very, very dedicated and loyal fandom. This series was also really prominent in Kingdom Hearts, which is one of my favorite series as well, but I really saw a lot of these Final Fantasy X characters in that game, and I always wondered, what was the big deal about this game? What is all the big hype about? You know what? It's been released over 1,000 times, and I've still never played it at all, any single time. So I'm wondering, should I go fix this mistake? Should I go try Final Fantasy X for the first time, going all the way through, non-stop, with no biasness? I've never played this game all the way through, and I admit this game does remind me of the greatness and the amazing era of PlayStation 2 JRPGs. Just its aesthetic alone makes me want to go turn it on and play it right now. But once again, I'm choosing one Final Fantasy out of these four, and I want it to be worth my time, because my time is very precious to me. So I need to make sure whichever one that I choose is one that I will not regret, like I did with Final Fantasy 13. So Final Fantasy X, I know that it's on the list of great Final Fantasies, so I have very high expectations if I do ultimately decide to go with this particular entry, because you guys always are ranting and raving about Final Fantasy X. So when I finally play it, or if you guys choose me to play it, it better live up to the hype, because I've been hearing about this game for years. So there you guys have it. Those are my four choices. We got Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1, Final Fantasy VIII, and Final Fantasy X. Let me know if any of these choices are way too safe, and maybe I'll reconsider again. But for right now, what I want from you guys in the comment section down below is to unanimously agree on which should be my next Final Fantasy, and whichever one you guys choose, I will start playing it immediately, and I'll have an honest, pure, no holds bar review on that particular game in anticipation for waiting for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This will honestly make or break my decision to see if I really want to get Rebirth or not, because again, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan, but I am willing to right my mistakes or right my wrong as the man that I am. First and foremost, thank y'all for watching the video, man. I hope that you enjoyed it. Final Fantasy fans, hit that subscribe button if you're curious to see my journey. I know you are, so let's see if I become converted or not. Let's see if I end up putting more respect on Final Fantasy's name. But thank y'all for watching my video, man. Hit that like button. Thank you for watching. Comment down below, and I'll see you next. I'm so excited about what you guys will choose, but it has to unanimously be decided. All right, now, I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.